Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. Today's video is sponsored by Policygenius, but more on that later. In today's video, we're going to address the topic of how much money you need to live off of dividends. In my opinion, getting paid dividends from stock that you own is one of the purest forms of passive income out there. I know that phrase gets thrown around way too much on YouTube and social media, usually from gurus trying to sell you something, but dividends truly are passive income. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how much money you need to live off of dividends, how to calculate that number, and show you some common real-life examples of how this can work exactly for you. Stay tuned. Okay, number one is how much money do you need to live off of dividends? So the calculation for this number is very simple. You take the income required, so dollars required, and you divide it by the dividend yield, okay? This gives you the amount you need to be invested or have invested to live off of dividends. So according to census.gov, real median household income in 2021 was $70,784. So for this example, for easy numbers, let's just use 70,000. Okay, so first let's take that $70,000 and divide it by a realistic dividend yield of 3.5%. So if you take 70,000 divided by 0.35, the dividend yield is basically a financial ratio that tells you the percentage of the company's share price that it pays out in dividends each year. So when it comes to dividend investing in today's current environment, any yield above 5% is getting into yield trap territory. We'll talk about this later, meaning that you're chasing yield over gaining solid growth investments and returns. Again, we'll come back to this later. So if we take this $70,000 divided by 3.5%, this would give us an investment number of exactly $2 million. So this sounds like a scary number and it may sound unobtainable to some of you watching this video today. However, everyone's income needs are different, so you need to apply the situation to you personally. So for example, some people need $70,000 a year to live off of, some people need $40,000, some people need $350,000. My only advice here would be to track your expenses realistically for 1 year and see where you can improve. So I'm not a fan of keeping budgets for every single little thing you do. However, I am a fan of understanding your general income versus general expenses and understanding how much money you have to play with at the end of each month. So if you see there are areas in which you can cut spending, incorporate those into your calculation. Also, if you're seriously considering living off dividends, you need to cut expenses such as commuting to work because you will no longer be doing that. You also need to look on the other side and look into other options such as healthcare and other costs that may not be covered because you are no longer working. But I don't want to get the cart before the horse here. So my favorite take on financial independence retire early, AKA FIRE, which I'll be talking about in this video, is actually financial independence recreational employment. So instead of, I'll just write it here, you have FIRE, financial independence retire early. There's a big subset, a big community of these people here. I like the acronym Financial Independence Recreational Employment. This is a phrase that I heard from the channel Gen X Dividend Investor, so shout out to him and go check him out if you haven't already. Okay, step number 2 to understanding how much it takes to live off of dividends per year, it is critical that we understand dividend yield and what it is. So I mentioned that we're gonna talk about it, let's get into it. The dividend yield is a stock's annual dividend rate per share divided by the stock's price at that point in time. So let's take a look at an example. If a company pays $1 per share, I'll just put it right next to here so you can easily see it. This is what it pays annually per share to its investors every year in dividends. And the current stock price is, let's say for example, $30. This company has a dividend yield of 1 divided by 30. That gives you 3.33% as the dividend yield. You can easily find this information online. You can use like a Seeking Alpha or Yahoo Finance or whatever. But again, this is Whiteboard Finance. We're trying to understand the concepts and understand the numbers that we're looking at, not just click the easy button and see the answer. So the reason dividend yield is so important is because if you're truly going to pursue the path of being a dividend investor or living off dividends, you need to understand if your yield is competitive versus other financial products such as a savings account, T-bills, or other options with yields themselves. So the other thing you have to realize is that chasing a higher yield can ultimately hurt you in the long run. I'll show you an example of this later. So for example, if you have a stock with a yield of, let's say, 9%, this may initially look attractive to you, but what if the company's share price declines by more than that year after year? You are ultimately net negative for this investment, and it defeats the whole purpose of investing in that thing. So some people may say, but hey, Marco, I'm just interested in living off the dividends, so I don't care what happens to my overall capital as long as I'm paid consistently by the stocks that I hold. So for some people, maybe close to retirement or even close to death, this may be true, but for others who are thinking about capital preservation and better yet, capital growth while still receiving that dividend, these yield traps are ultimately going to hurt you in the long run. It's important for investors to keep in mind that higher dividend yields do not always indicate attractive investment opportunities because the dividend yield of a stock may be elevated artificially as a result of a declining stock price, okay? So let's take a look at how an increased dividend yield actually decreases the amount of capital you need to reach your income goal. Okay, so let's take our example. I'm gonna erase this, pause the screen, memorize it, do what you gotta do. I'm gonna erase this right now. Let's take our example of $70,000 needed to live in the previous step, okay? And instead of dividing it by 3.5% this time, our previous dividend yield, let's increase that dividend to 5%. So we're gonna divide this by 0.05, that's 5%. And what do we get? So instead of $2 million, we now only need 1.4 million, okay? Can you see now how enticing it is to chase yield? So we now need $600,000 less, 2 million versus 1.4, to achieve our same income goal of $70,000. So chasing yield is enticing, but I promise you it will most likely hurt you in the long run. So speaking of getting hurt in the long run, let's prevent that with today's sponsor. Worst segue ever. Let's prevent that with today's sponsor with insurance from Policygenius. If you have anyone relying on your income, you need life insurance. It's really that simple. Policygenius is your one-stop shop to find and buy the insurance you need at the right price. It's essential to have life insurance because mortgage payments, childcare, and other expenses don't disappear when you are gone. Life insurance through your workplace may not be enough protection for your family's needs, and it won't follow you if you leave your job. My wife and I personally use Policygenius to find our life insurance because if something were to happen to us while traveling, we know that our little girl and our family would be covered. Policygenius was built to modernize the life insurance industry. Their technology makes it easy to compare life insurance quotes from top companies like AIG and Prudential in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $17 per month for $500,000 of coverage. Policygenius has licensed agents who can help you find the options that offer coverage in as little as a week and avoid unnecessary medical exams. They're not incentivized to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. There are no added fees and your personal information is private. No wonder they have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Your loved ones deserve a financial safety net. You deserve a smarter way to find and buy it. Head to policygenius.com/whiteboardfinance or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. Okay, so as promised, let's jump into 3 real-life examples based on age. We're going to do someone in their 20s, a couple in their 30s and 40s, and a couple in their mid-60s. Let's take a young 20-something person who wants to achieve FIRE, financial independence, retire early, or again, financial independence, recreational employment. So this young person, they can live off just $25,000 per year. Okay. Sorry, did you guys hear my dog barking? Because they have a roommate. They're frugal, and they don't have any dependents. So this person isn't afraid to invest in higher dividend yield stocks, and they are even looking into some real estate investment trusts, AKA REITs, which are giving them a blended yield of 4.5%. Okay, 0.045, that's 4.5%. Now at this point, you should be able to figure out the amount of investment income needed for this person to live off their dividends. I want you to pause the video and tell me the answer down in the comments below, okay? Their expenses are $25,000 a year. Their dividend yield is a blended 4.5%. Please pause the video, leave the answer down in the comments below. Okay, for those of you that answered $555,555, you are correct, okay? You are absolutely correct that this young 20-something person can live off their portfolio for that amount. I know this sounds like a large number, but there are now remote positions that pay very well, where a few laser-focused years, you could sock away this much money and live off your dividends. Okay, example number 2. Let's take a couple in their 30s. Give me 1 second. I haven't done one of these live drawings in a minute on this channel. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so these people are in their 30s. This is example number 2, okay? They're in their 30s. They want to start living off dividends because they just had a daughter and they want to be able to fire by the time she starts high school. They want to be able to travel as much as possible while they're still physically able to do so and able to enjoy it. They determine that they will need $125,000 a year to support this lifestyle without having to decrease their quality of life, and also adjust it for other costs mentioned earlier, such as health insurance. So this couple was able to take advantage of their incredible growth of their tech stocks, which paid little to no dividends, but they decided to sell all those growth stocks and reinvest that capital into the ETF known as SCHD, which is currently yielding 3.22% at the time of this recording, okay? So let's do the math. Let's take $125,000 divided by 3.22%, which gives us the amount of $3,726,000, okay? Again, this sounds like a boatload of money, and it is. But between two high-income earners who live frugally, coupled with dividend growth and dividends being reinvested, which I'll talk about at the end of this video, this can be achieved by the time their daughter goes to high school in 14 years or so. So the other option for a scenario like this one is one of the parents obtaining FIRE while the other still works full or part-time. You would then be able to essentially cut this $3.7 million number in half because only one of the parents would need the income from the portfolio, okay? And then finally, let's go to example number 3, where we have someone who's trying to basically retire in their 60s or a more traditional retirement age, okay? So let's take a look at a couple that wanna retire in their mid-60s. Typically, by this age, your house will be paid off. You will receive assistance from Medicare for healthcare costs, and usually when you get older, you typically don't spend as much money as you do in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. Their entire goal of building this portfolio is basically to retire and enjoy their time together. The nice thing about building a portfolio for this age is that you will also have supplemental income with Social Security payments, at least at the time of this recording. Who knows what it's gonna be like for my generation, but this couple will only need a few $1,000s a month to live comfortably. Let's call it $45,000 a year, okay? So this couple has no children, no heirs, basically no dependents, no one that they want to leave the money to, so they're happy to pursue a much higher yield, risking overall capital preservation and capital growth. Their portfolio has an average dividend yield of 6%, okay? So this is easy math, you should know this by now. So if we follow the math from this video, we're just gonna take $45,000 divided by 6%, giving us an investment amount of $750,000. Okay? Between the two of them, considering their time frame, this number can easily be achieved with just median wage earnings by the time they reach their 60s. Okay, so as always, I end the video on my thoughts, some things that I didn't talk about in order just to simplify this video and kind of just get the conversation out there. Obviously, we didn't touch on taxes. So with dividends, you have qualified versus unqualified. Did my dog seriously just come in the studio? You gotta be kidding me. Layla, what are you doing? All right, we're gonna do this last segment with Layla. Layla, you're barking in the video, you're doing everything. Okay, so this is what we're doing. So we have taxes, we have qualified versus unqualified. So basically ordinary versus qualified. So what are ordinary taxes? So unqualified is basically taxed at your income tax rate. So if you make 50 grand a year at your W-2 job, that's what these dividends are gonna be basically added to your taxable income, okay? That's bad because if you make a lot of money, then you're paying the highest tax bracket possible on these dividends. If they're qualified, okay, basically you have 3 different tax brackets depending on your income. You have 0% on capital gains, or on the dividends, you have 15% and you have 20%, okay? So if you're really, really rich, that's good because you'll be paying 20%. If you don't make that much money, you're probably gonna fall in between 0 or 15%, if that makes sense. Number 2, we have, number 2, we have drip. You know how hard this is to do with a dog? Okay. Okay, number 2 is drip, which is basically reinvesting your dividends, okay? So if you own these dividends, you can either choose not to reinvest them, in which they will show up as cash in your account, or you can choose to reinvest them either buying more shares of the same stock, or you can kind of just take the cash and buy whatever you want to buy. But when you turn on the dividend reinvestment plan, this is basically just going to buy you more and more shares of the stock. If you don't touch this, this can snowball into a pretty material amount of money over time, okay? So at some point, you may reach 15, 20 grand of dividends a year. Well, there you go. You're investing basically almost 2 grand a month. Let's just say it's 24,000 a year. You have 2 grand a month going into dividends without even adding any of your own money anymore. But that leads me to point number 3, growth and no cuts. You wanna make sure that the companies that you're investing in are growing their dividend, and you wanna make sure that they're not cutting them. You wanna have a consistent track record of growth and also payouts. You don't wanna invest in something in these yield traps that are yielding 9, 10%. Next thing you know, they cut the dividend by a ton, or they don't even pay out a dividend, and they stop the consecutive quarters, years, whatever you wanna call it, months of paying out this dividend itself. You wanna look into dividend aristocrats, dividend kings, dividend champions. These are companies that you should look for if you're investing in the long term. This is not financial advice. This is coming from Layla. Layla, say hello to everyone. Oh! Oh! Okay, all right, thank you. All right, that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. World Cup is starting. I'm gonna try and knock out as many videos as possible. I'm still working on Whiteboard Finance, I apologize. I've just been super busy with family, friends, traveling, a bunch of stuff, things around the house. I know, you know how it gets if you have kids. But anyway, please like the video, please subscribe, please share this with everyone you know. The algorithm is what it is. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a prosperous day.